Hi, this is Ken McCarthy of the Real Food Channel, also Next World TV and Next World Health. And I'm going to share some hard-earned knowledge with you. You can learn things from a book, you can learn things from another person, or you can learn things the hard way. And in my case, I learned this one the hard way. This has to do with toxins in so-called everyday items that we have in our home. If you're not aware of how toxic many home products are, I recommend that you look up the work of Annie Bond, A-N-N-I-E, Bond, B-O-N-D, and that's a great gateway into learning that many of the things that we use to clean, or God forbid, fragrance our homes are actually extremely toxic. One of the other areas of extreme toxin are varnishes and wood stains. And in fact, when it comes to chemical injury, and chemical injuries do occur in this world, we usually think of them as happening in extreme ways, with places like Bhopal, India, or in factories with massive chemical leaks or chemical fires. Well, those happen. Those are very dramatic. But you can also have a relatively low-level contamination that causes quite a bit of harm. And this is something that happens a lot more than you would think. And it is very rarely, if ever, talked about. And it's something that everybody should be aware of the potential. Because if you're aware of the potential, you will be much more likely to recognize the danger and protect yourself rapidly. And rapid protection is one of the important things in this case. But anyway, people do get chemical injuries in their homes. And 80% of all in-home chemical injuries come from home improvement projects, renovations. So without getting too much into the details, some new cabinetry was brought into my home. It had a wood stain on it, and I had a severe negative neurological reaction to it. Very severe, very, very severe. And it's caused me more or less a lasting injury. So lesson number one is, if you ever encounter something that smells really weird to you, doesn't matter how it smells to anybody else. If it smells really weird to you, that's a flag. If it makes you sick right away, that's a flag. And the most important thing is to get that thing out of your house or get yourself away from it immediately. So that's a lesson. The other thing is, one of the byproducts of this injury is disrupted sleep habits. And I remember way back in the sort of the recesses of my mind that I had learned that ammonia in the blood, elevated ammonia levels in the blood, will contribute to insomnia. And so I started looking into that. And what I discovered is that, we all have a thing called the liver, and hopefully our liver is working well. And ammonia is a byproduct of digestion, especially the digestion of protein. And of course, regardless of the source of protein, whether it's animal protein or plant protein, we do consume protein. We need protein. We should have protein. And again, one of the byproducts of the breakdown of amino acids is ammonia. Now, under normal circumstances, your liver does a very good job of, processing that ammonia and moving it along. However, if you've had some kind of an injury that reduces your liver's ability to do that, then ammonia levels build up in your bloodstream. Now, what kind of an injury? Well, if you drink a lot of alcohol, well, that's an injury. You're injuring yourself every day. That will lead to that could lead to an excessive buildup of ammonia. You could have a exposure to chemical toxins, like I did. That will reduce your liver function. Now, it may not show up on a test, but it may be happening. So if you find yourself with insomnia or any of these other symptoms, these are all symptoms of elevated concentrations of ammonia. And they include impaired memory, shortened attention span, kind of a feeling of swelling in the brain. I'm not giving medical advice here, but I'm just saying if you find yourself with things like that, one of the things to talk with your doctor about, assuming they know anything, is the potential that you're not processing ammonia effectively. Now be careful, because they're going to want to put you on drugs and God knows what else. So let's talk about the things that you can do that don't require drugs. By the way, what's happening here? So you have a blood-brain barrier, and the blood-brain barrier protects your brain from the things that are in your blood, which are not always good. Sometimes you've got things in you that need to be processed by the liver and gotten rid of. So you don't want your brain soaking in that stuff. So there's a thing called the blood-brain barrier. However, if you've got elevated levels of ammonia, and a little bit of ammonia leaks, crosses that barrier under normal circumstances. But if you have elevated levels of ammonia, then a lot can leak into your brain. I don't want to scare you, but if a whole lot leaks into your brain, you really need to see a doctor immediately. But you might have trace amounts, or you might be very sensitive to the levels to ammonia in general. So what the heck can you do? If you've got that, what can you do that's healthy, that doesn't require drugs, it doesn't have incredibly negative side effects? Well, the good news is there is something you can do. And number one, consume less protein. Now, I'm not talking about eliminating protein from your diet. However, because protein is thought of as this godly thing, it's a good thing. Therefore, the more you get, the better. There are protein bars, there's high protein meals, there's all this stuff. Well, if you do any research at all, and you don't really have to spend a lot of time, you'll discover that even medical science, so-called medical science as it's practiced in the United States of America, even they recognize that too much protein is not a good thing. It's not good for your kidneys, and it's even not good for your brain. And it's not good for your brain because if you consume excess protein, that's excess protein for you, whatever that might be, it will produce enhanced, elevated ammonia levels, which will cross the blood-brain barrier and cause things like impaired memory, shortened attention span, insomnia, and other brainish type of things. So protein is not a godlike substance. It's something that you consume within reason at the right levels. So number one, you may be consuming way more protein than you need. Like you don't need to eat those protein bars to get your whatever number of grams of protein every day. Number two, if you are a vegan or a vegetarian, you're probably already on a good trail, on a good path. Stay on it. Because it is meat, it is animal protein that produces the most ammonia byproduct. So what you would want to do instead of eating vast quantities of meat all day long, every day, is number one, reduce your meat intake significantly. Number two, don't eat meat late at night. Right? If you're going to have animal protein, do not have it right before you go to bed. Why? Just logic. We don't need a medical degree to practice logic. If you're having a little trouble processing and eliminating ammonia from your body, maybe because your liver's a little weak or your liver's challenged by other things, well, giving it a huge job to do right before you go to sleep, a huge ammonia-producing job to do right before you go to sleep is not logical, right? So if you're going to have animal products, have them early in the day and not late at night, or not at night even at all. Maybe you should stop eating animal products at noon, let's say. Well, for those of you that aren't in on the secret, you can get all kinds of high-quality protein from things that don't produce tons and tons of ammonia. And those include vegetables and legumes, beans, plenty of protein in beans. And if you don't know that, check it out. It's It's not rocket science. It's not controversial. It's the way it is. So you can get all kinds of protein from legumes. But even that, I would be cautious and careful about not consuming a lot of beans. You can actually eat so many beans that you not overdose. Nobody overdoses on protein, but you can actually consume so many lentils or beans or peas or high protein plant foods that it can cause you a problem at night too. So choose vegetable proteins. There's so many other values to getting your protein from legumes. Number one, you're not going to find antibiotics. You're not going to find steroids in legumes. A animal-fed GMO corn that's been sprayed with Roundup. Where do you think all that chaos ends up? Well, it ends up in the animal's tissues. And where do you think it ends up after you eat it? It ends up in you. That is much less likely to happen, especially if you get organic legumes, beans, lentils, green peas. It's not that much more expensive to get the organic variety. And if you get it organic, you know that it's not GMO, and you know that it has not been sprayed with anything. So it's a nice, clean food. So to take this full circle, if you're having sleep problems, or if you're having any kind of cognitive problems, one of the possibilities, and check this out with your doctor, could be elevated ammonia levels. This is something that happens. It's not, it's not deadly. Well, it can be actually. In severe cases, it's a very serious ailment. But you can have a moderate case of it, or you can just be extremely sensitive to ammonia. So anyway, there are things that you can do. You know what the symptoms are: insomnia, irritability, lack of concentration, short attention span. All of these things are a function of that. Now, why we in grammar school, I don't know. I mean, this is not hard to understand, right? You don't need a medical degree to understand this. We understand that we eat food, and the food is processed, and there's byproducts, and our liver handles it, right? That's easy. We can understand that one of the key byproducts of protein digestion is ammonia, right? Not hard to understand. We can understand that if we eat way too much protein, or if our liver is challenged, or if it's both, we're going to have elevated levels of ammonia, just logical. And we know what the symptoms of elevated ammonia are. So this is something that everybody can understand and everybody can do something about. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. And good luck, and share the good news with people. There are things that you can do to help yourself. And of course, if you have something that's beyond a simple problem, find a good doctor. That should really be the first advice, right? Not just go to a doctor or go to your doctor. Find a good doctor. They are out there. They are not easy to find. You might get lucky on the first try, or you might not. But there are doctors out there that are good, that are informed, that are intelligent, that bother to learn things past the pushing of pharmaceutical products and ordering expensive tests and then declaring those tests don't show anything. There are doctors that actually can go beyond that. And of course, you have to educate yourself. And the most damaging, ridiculous advice you're ever going to get is, oh, don't go to the internet. Don't go to the internet to get your information about health. Really? Really? I should go to a doctor that hasn't even bothered to crack a book in the last 20 years? That's better than getting on the internet and using my own intelligence and figuring things out? Now, obviously, don't use the internet to scare yourself, and don't go to sites that are pushing supplements or fear-mongering. But there are plenty of websites that are very they're run by MDs that have MDs on their editorial board. This is not something that's hard to find, and these are resources that you should use. Let me give you an example. I went to a so-called MD, and I'm a layman, and I had pain that I thought was in my liver. And she said, oh, there's no, that's very rare, and you blah, 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 blah. Well, a couple of weeks later, I found out that there's a thing called the gallbladder. I mean, I didn't go to medical school. I've heard of a gallbladder. Well, the gallbladder is right near the liver. And the gallbladder, indeed, is subject to pain. There's bile ducts there, and they get jammed up, and things go wrong. So here I am talking to an MD, telling them that I'm getting pain in the upper right quadrant of my body. I think it's my liver, doc. And this doctor's so ignorant that instead of saying, oh, that's interesting, let me palpate there, let me see what's going on, because your gallbladder is also there, and that's an area that can get inflamed, can get irritated. No, didn't get that. Wasted a trip to the doctor, wasted the money, and wasted weeks in ignorance until I did my own research. So it'd be nice to think that we could count on MDs. Yeah, there's a lot of things that would be nice. But the idea that you shouldn't do your own research about your own health, that is one of the most destructive, corrosive, idiotic pieces of advice that you will ever hear. So the information's out there. You can find things out, and it's probably in your best interest to find things out and come to your doctor with information. It's so funny. I'm kind of rambling here, but I think it's really important. How do the big pharmaceutical companies get doctors to prescribe toxic medicines that have deadly side effects? How do they do that? They run ads. And what do those ads do? Those ads drive patients to doctors requesting a particular pharmaceutical. And when the doctor hears the request enough, and then the pharmaceutical rep, who's not a doctor or a scientist, shows up with a big bag of that stuff, the doctor goes, oh, okay, I'll prescribe this. Okay, that is the pathway by which medical knowledge is shared in our so-called modern world, right? So why can't we use our own intelligence, figure things out, and go to our doctors and say, I've got insomnia, or I'm having trouble with concentration, and I've learned that having a lot of ammonia in your bloodstream is a cause. What do you think? If he or she doesn't know an answer, can't answer that, just move on, find another doctor. And you'll be amazed how many they don't know anything. I don't know what they know. They know how to order tests. I guess this is going to turn into a rant. Doctors only get paid when they do a few things: when they diagnose, when they order tests, or when they refer you. If you go to a doctor and they don't do any of those things, they're not doing their job, and they know that. So let's look at diagnosis. They get paid for diagnosing you, whether the diagnosis is out of thin air or not. Okay, could be completely pulled out of their proverbial where, and they still get paid. If that diagnosis leads you to serious injury, well, maybe you can sue them, maybe not, probably not. So they don't like. There was a famous case of a doctor who reported this. He's an orthopedist himself. He had a knee problem. He went to 8 doctors. He got 8 different diagnoses, 7 of which, based on internet research that he did, made no sense. The 8th one made sense, and he was fixed in a couple of weeks. That's an MD who's already a specialist in the area. What chances do you think we have if we go to these people unarmed in knowledge, right? So they diagnose or they refer, if you're lucky. It's amazing how many and I don't understand this. You're a doctor, you've been in business 20 years, you don't know a dermatologist, you don't know an ophthalmologist, you don't know an allergist. I mean, what kind of gross negligence is it to be set up as an MD? Now, I'm talking about guys that just got out of school. I can understand that. But you've been a doctor in an area for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and you don't have a Rolodex of reliable people that you can refer your patients to? And yet, I encounter this all the time, right? What's the third thing? They can order tests. Get an MRI, right? I have a knee problem. Go get an MRI. I had a 44-year-long back problem. 44 years. Started when I was 14, continued for the next 44 years. I went to dozens of people over the years. Everybody you could imagine. Massage, acupuncture, orthopedics, Feldenkrais, Alexander, acupuncture. I mean, you name the modality, I went to it. And they all were very good at taking my money. None of them had any problem with that at all. But they weren't very good at fixing me or helping me. I went to one guy, finally. He did 10 minutes of functional testing, moving me in different areas. He showed me a series of exercises. I had instant relief. And within 2 months, this 44-year back problem is under control. I'm not going to say it's gone, but completely under control. It doesn't negatively affect my life anymore. And when I do have a problem, I can address it myself. That's the kind of medicine we need. By the way, that's something called the McKenzie method. McKenzie, MAKNEZIE, developed by a physical therapist. And I can't vouch for every McKenzie method person in the world. I can only vouch for the guy that I went to. He's up in Troy, New York. But that's the kind of medicine we need. We don't need lazy, ignorant, arrogant doctors who pull diagnoses out of thin air, can't refer you to anybody good, don't seem to know anything about anything, and order a bunch of tests that don't help at all. Like the PT guy that I went to, the physical therapist, didn't need an x-ray, didn't need an MRI, didn't need anything. He could see from my inability to move in certain ways how I was injured, and he knew the injury, he knew the exercise I needed to do to ameliorate that injury. Simple. So take this full circle. What we eat has to be digested. What is digested creates byproducts. Our liver deals with those byproducts. If we overload the liver with too much of a good or a bad thing, protein overload, not good, we're going to create byproducts that the liver is going to have trouble dealing with. And if one of those byproducts is ammonia, we're going to have the symptoms of excess ammonia. So I hope this helps. I hope this empowers you to use your own mind. And you've got to use your own mind in this world. You can't let other people think for you. Good luck.